AI Basics with AK. Before jumping into this week's content, I made a small change in our website. When you click on AI Vlogs, earlier you would have seen a table. Now I have made it into checkboxes season wise, such that when we have multiple seasons, the table would go on a lengthy fashion and it will be difficult for the people to filter down that specific video or content if they want to view it. So right now it will be very easy for the people, say for example, if they want to see Python programming, maybe one particular say list and tuples content, they can come and click a link here. But to convey to all of you, only episode 1 and episode 2 links are active at this point of time. On weekly basis, all these links will get active and you can come and browse directly through here, if even though if you don't find any YouTube video link. But I promise I will make this YouTube video on weekly basis for all of you. And if you can see here, this is the homework one. Yeah, just wait. Yeah, my net is a little bit slow today. So you can see here that there are no submissions, but that's fine. We have just started. Maybe I have very low views, but I feel that at least if one person submits to these links and start giving some motivation to me, that will add some boost to me. So yeah, let's jump into this week's content. Thank you. Episode 2: Variables and Data Types. So this is our agenda for this day. We will see the variables. Last week we have seen variables, declaration like x is equal to 2 and everything, but we will see the specific pointers, initializations and declarations, reserve keywords, because these are the keywords that we should not use for initializing the variables. And how do we update these variables? So these basics we will see it out initially. And then the data types. This becomes the DNA of the information, because what are the different data types and how do we identify such basic data types. So with this we'll close this episode for today. Jumping into the next slide. So here we can see that these are the specific rules for initializing the variables. Like, variables has to be characters, variables can contain only alphabets, numbers and underscores. So it cannot contain any other signs, like say for example it cannot contain hyphens. When declaring the variables, it cannot contain spaces like this. Also, when declaring a variable, it has to start either with an underscore or an alphabet, but certainly not with digits. Here we cannot start with zeros as well. However, these are the valid declarations. That is, x and 0 you can start with, but there are specific hygiene practices of declaring variables which we will discuss maybe in 2 episodes later from this, or else you can also google it in the meantime. And you can start with underscore and x, and this is highly useful, or else this is useful especially when we are discussing with functions, which might be, I think, maybe 14th or 15th episode. And you can declare something like this and yes, and also you can see it out in the last fifth line here. You can declare multiple variables when you are assigning a single one. This is highly useful. Say for example, you have in variables like 10 variables together and you want to initialize all of those 10 variables with zeros, or maybe with some random number, or with maybe some random string like this, like multiple assignment. This like you can, instead of having multiple defining variables, you can define the variable and initialize a variable with some value at the same time. Got it? uh, Now let's move to the next slide, where we will discuss about some reserved keywords. These are the keywords that we should not use from creating a variable, else it will throw a syntax error. We will see those errors and everything sometime during our demo post this slides completion. However, if you want to use this keywords, say for example, you can always do like say for example, it's like a name, right? You have eligible, you maybe we'll have eligible 2 3 4. So if you want to use the same, say global, you can always use a global underscore something like that. So this so the main content around this slide is that these are the reserved keywords. These, if you start, you cannot use these keywords for defining our variables. Now, this is the update variable. In the last week also we have seen these updations, but there are two examples, left and right one. I'll just go through one of them, both of them together. Here in the first line we have initialized with x is equal to 2 and y variable with ai. Here I am printing y, so it is throwing in, it is giving in an output ai, because here since we have initialized the y variable with ai, it is giving an output as ai. Now again I am initializing y again with 2 because x is equal to 2, and then when I'm printing y here, it is printing as 2. Similarly, on the right side, we have initialized x with number 2, and then I am creating an y variable and initializing it to x, say for example, and then I'm printing y. Here the y value it should print as 2, and then I am updating x where x is equal to x plus 5. What does it mean here? X becomes 2 plus 5, so the value of x is has to be 7. But when I print y, because still it prints as 2. Why there is a difference? Now on the left hand side, when I'm initializing y is equal to x, it prints the value of x. But when I'm initializing, when I have already initialized y with respect to x, and then I have updated x value, it is not updating, right? Why would that happen? Because think, okay, think that um, I'll just use this. Think these variables are like, let's see it out. Now, initially, when x has been created, there is when variable, sorry, number has been assigned. The 2 is actually a placeholder, and we are pointing this 2 with a variable x. When we are assigning y is equal to x, we are not actually assigning a y variable to x here. We are actually assigning what is a placeholder of x to y. So the y will actually points to 2 here. So that is the reason on the right hand side, when x gets updated to 7 with a new placeholder, sorry, with a new placeholder 7, what happens is that it no more uh, uh, talking it is no more assigned to 2, it is assigned to 7. But however, y, which was assigned earlier to 2, is still assigned to 2. It has not been updated to 7. So that is the reason when, although x is updated, which is equal to 7, the y still points towards 2. So that's explain the difference between these two outputs. Hope this is clarified. Uh, Now, these are the basic data types, and we will see all of them in the future sessions. These are purely Boolean, and these are numbers and complex numbers, and these are characters or strings. That these things are actually, I would call as a root data types, and these things uses these these data types can be used in these data types. You can see in these examples here itself. So, like an integer here, the integer you would always know it is some number, like from negative minus 100, like minus infinity to plus infinity, but it is pure numbers. And similarly here, it is float is like a real number and complex is like a complex number. However, when we see lists or tuples here, okay, you can see here the numbers in it. Also, instead of numbers, there can also be in strings that we have seen as an example in our week 1, which will also see the same demo in some time. So there, so here, let me just quickly go through all of them. Boolean is nothing but true and false. Integer, as we have discussed, these are just real integer values, and the float is nothing but a real values which contains decimals. Complex, it's a complex number. Text or string, it's like it can be a character like A, B, C, D, and it can be a string, and also it can be a paragraph. List, which holds a list of values. It can be a list of characters, it can be a list of numbers, and it can be both. And tuples, we will discuss the difference maybe when we go to that specific uh, topic of lists and tuples, which is much more interesting because one is mutable and one is not mutable. What is mutable and not mutable? That's a homework for all of you. Dictionary is nothing but a key and a value pair. Like if you can see it out here, course is a key. What is a course? AI. Subject is a key. What is its value? It is Python. It is like a key and a value pair. It is highly useful, especially in I use it specifically when we scrape it out, especially when we scrape the data using JSON files, or else we scrape the data from the internet and store it in a dictionaries format. So it's very highly useful because the dictionaries can be immediately converted into data frames, which is nothing but an Excel sheet with rows and columns. And these are sets are very useful when we are using some union operations, like classic union operations like Venn diagrams that we would have seen when we are kids. Like these are very useful when we are creating that not ins and ins, and these are extremely fast operations. So we will go through all these things very detailedly in the next future videos, future episodes. So how do we identify a particular data type is what these examples here. Here X, and we have put it in quotations 3. What is it? When we put something in quotations, it becomes a string. So that's why we are printing here what is the data type of X, and to identify what is its data type, we can just use type. I'm just using type of X1 here, and it prints out string. Similarly here, we are so going through here, and x2 is assigned with 5. So since 5 is like an integer, it says it is an int. And if it is a true, yes, that's a boolean. 4j plus 1, it's like 4i plus 1. We would have seen it in when we are maybe in our high school. So that's a complex number. And 4.3, yes, it's a real number. So that's why it is called as a float. And here it's a square brackets. When there is a square brackets, it is called as a list. When it is a curvy, I don't know, brackets, it is called tuple. I don't know that, sorry. When it has curly brackets, it is called as a set. All of them are the same, but the notations of these brackets changes, whether it is a list, whether it is a tuple, whether it is a set. And then the last one, when we have where we have seen it out, where we are defining it as an key and a value pair, and the comma. Here you can say a key, and then there is a colon, and then there is a value, comma, key, and then colon and value. This becomes a dictionary. So that's the basic data types, and how do we identify those basic data types. So that's more about this week's content. Like quickly just go through immediately to our homework before jumping on to the demo. So this week's homework, okay, what is a syntax error, and provide some examples of syntax error. Anyways, we'll be going through this in our videos right now, but I recommend you people to just uh, create new examples when you are actually submitting your homeworks. And this is what I have discussed in the video: what is meant by mutable data type and how it is useful in programming. Just think from a data science perspective, what is mutable uh, and what is not mutable. Like, if something gets mutable, how is it useful in our programming, and something you cannot change it out, how it is useful in our programming. Like, just that's the content. It's not like which data type is mutable, we are not in, but why some data types are defined as mutable, that gives you context. Now, just a programming exercise here. Like, create a function such that you just initialize the variable as a 0. Just check the slides of week 1 and week 2. I think you should be able to do it. And the fourth one is actually like it's you can try, just google it down, like how do you convert from one data type to other data type. In our slides we have seen it out, like there is an int and there is a string. Say for example, how do you convert some integer to a string, maybe string to an integer. Just google it down, I think you will get it in very quick time. So let's start our demo. Hi, we are back to our demo. I'm using VS Code. Maybe you can use Google Colab and etc. But for this episode, it will be very easy for me to showcase what is a variable and how the outputs are getting printed. And I'm using an extension in the VS Code on the right hand side, which explains you, okay, what variables are getting created and how it is getting printed on the terminal without me executing it out, because it runs at a backend. Here first, let's assign x is equal to 2. Here it says that we have created a variable x and assigned it to a 2. Now let's create a variable which starts with 0. Let's see what happens. Here we can see that it is throwing an syntax error, and it is pointing it out at x, which says invalid hexadecimal literal. So the programming says, okay, there is some language syntax, okay, you are not following the syntax that I have given you as a guideline, I'm unable to understand it, okay, I'm giving you a syntax error. So that's mainly a syntax error. It's like every language has a semantics. So Python has some semantics, and when you are not following those semantics, it will throw, okay, error, there is an error, you are not following the rule book. So that's basically the syntax error. Now let's correct it. Now let's assign x is equal to 5. Now if we had seen it out, there two variables have not been created here. Earlier you would have seen here on the right hand side 2 has been assigned to x. Now we have defined x is equal to 5, so x got updated with 5. Now let us create y is equal to, say, x. Here you can see, which is what we have discussed in our slides, y has been assigned, given a value of 5 here. If we update x is equal to x plus, say, 5, immediately x gets updated to 10, but still y remains at 5. Why? Because y value has not been updated. If we reassign y to x again here, then automatically y gets also updates to 10. These are numericals. Let's see some quick strings. Now it's now x is no more number. Okay, it is right now a string and it is repointed to a string. Now say for example I want to add x plus y. Let us see what it will throw error. It says a type error. You cannot concat string and int, which will further see it out how to add uh, two strings together in our strings or two integers together in the next videos, but this is what it will throw in error. Say for example, when if we want to convert, and also let's check the type of x. Since we have to print that output, let's print that output. So the type of x is class string. Similarly, let's create a list. 1, 2, and 3. So the moment you created a list, okay, a variable y has been created, okay, with values 1, 2, and 3 in a list format. Do you want to show? You want to see it out? Let's create another variable, maybe within curly brackets. Say 1, 2, and 3. Now let's see. So it's showing something different as py set item. If you can see it out here, it is calling as a set item automatically. But still, if you want to see it out, their types. So let me just it has, okay, sorry, it has a comma, so that's why. So earlier it has a string, x has a string. Now x is a set, that is what we have seen it, and y is a list, that is what it is showing it out here. Now this x is first an x, which is string, and the x which got updated to a new set that we had seen. We can also see it out here, which is calling it as a Python set, which has 3 items, 1, 2, and 3. And type y, when we are seeing it as a y as a list, okay, it is showcasing it as a list. So that's quickly about your types, and let's see, create some more examples of other types like dictionaries with a new variable. Say for example z, say course, and AI, maybe subject, and maybe okay. It's always better to give sufficient spaces so that your program gets is illegible. Now this looks like some key because it's highlighting something as blue, and there is something value which has a different color on the right hand side. So let's see this data type as well. So here, what did it throw? It's showing as a dictionary class. Isn't it so beautiful? Now let's try to print the help keywords, which are the reserve keywords that we have seen it out here. Here, when I'm entering help keywords, I think this particular tool is not giving an output. So let's execute it on the terminal. So when we execute it on the terminal, we can see that these are the specific keywords. Now let's just pick one keyword and let's try to create that as a variable. Already it is throwing an error. Assignment to yield expression is not possible. It is saying it very clearly that you cannot do it. But the moment you put yield 1, you can assign it. An yield 1 variable has been created and has been assigned a string value of 2. And if you want to change this string to numerical, it will automatically change it here. So that's where we will end it for the demo for today. Thanks a lot. Hope you like this content. Have a lovely day. If you like it, certainly don't forget to subscribe, share, and like it. Thanks a lot.